All right, welcome to Property and Paper Live. This is Dawn Rickabaugh, your host, NoteQueen.com. If you're listening on YouTube or the podcast, please follow, subscribe, whatever would be great. You already know what to do more than I do probably. And I'm also over on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook now. I'm growing up, learning how business is done. Now tonight, what I wanted to do is run through a couple of scenarios. And if you're here because of the headline, basically best kept secret, the best real estate loans you can get. Obviously, if you've been around this conversation a while, you know that if you don't know, when I'm looking at a property that I want to buy, I always think of the seller as the lender first. I don't think, oh my gosh, am I going to go qualify for a loan? I don't call my private money partners. I always, and I will only begrudgingly do something else if I can't get the seller to be my lender. And what does that do over the years? Now, I don't buy a ton of property. I buy a lot more notes, do a lot more paper type transactions than I do real estate. But in 25 years, all the properties that I have bought, and especially the ones I've kept, have all been with owner financing. I haven't asked a bank for a loan in over 25 years. So I really like that. It's just sort of a personal line in the sand. And so I just don't really ever think of having to, go through that process of qualifying for a loan. That's just my personal position. And so in every case, no matter what the going rate was at any cycle, I always got as good as bank financing, but usually better. Okay, if the banks were lending at 4, I usually got 3.5. If they were, right now, I don't pay any more than, 5. I just don't pay more than 5%. That's just how it is. And of course, we know that the banks are lending at 7%. So what you're never going to hear, if this is new to you, you haven't heard of this before, your bank is not going to tell you about the best real estate loan you can get. Your real estate agent is most likely not going to tell you about the best real estate investment you can get. The best real estate loan you can get is from the seller of the property. Now, sometimes it's not always easy to get everybody to agree to that, but it is possible. And tonight, I'm going to bring up 3 of my examples, and I also want to hear from anyone on this call who has their own examples that may be even way better than anything I've ever done or seen. I'm going to share one example that is mine that you've probably heard me talk about before. It's just such a great case study. And I'm going to give you one example from a consulting client of mine. And I'm going to give you another example of a guy that brought me these about 3 weeks ago. He had a portfolio of these properties that he had bought with owner financing. Okay, so those are the 3 examples, and then we will just head off from there. And Axel, is there anything that you want to just say, the normal thing? And Axel, thanks again for being here, and all of you other people too. Always a pleasure. Hi, Valerie. Great to see you.
If you have any questions, you can chat them in. My name is Axel Support there. If you chat them to everybody, like the whole group, that's fine too, because then everybody can see your question. And then I'll do my very best to field it over to Dawn, and we'll try to get those questions answered live. If you're noisy in the background, I'll definitely help you stay on mute. But if you'd like to unmute, jump in and ask Dawn a question, feel free to do so. She really loves, everybody kind of engaging.
Yeah, thank you so much, Axel. As per usual, I'm going to share my screen. This is a single-family inherited home for sale that was listed for several months at $400,000. And then this gal, and it's the home I'm in now. I just love living here so much. And it's turned out to be just such a great blessing to me. Anyway, she found me online, we buy houses type of person. I think I bought maybe 5 properties that year through that website, even though I wasn't even paying attention to it. But this must have just been divine timing, because this house and this property was meant for me. Anyway, so I ended up, needs lots of work. I love it. It's 3 acres, ton of great potential, but needed about $250,000 worth of work. So I offered her $225 and cash offer. And she says, well, I got an offer from a guy down the road for $250. And I said, oh, I don't, this isn't a flip for me. This is a long-term hold. And at the time I didn't know it would be my primary residence. It was just going to be, a second family home. I just fell in love with it, one of those enchanting things. And I said, I'm going to hold it long-term. I can pay you $250, but I need you to carry it for me. Would you carry paper? Would you, offer owner financing? And as luck would have it, her parents, she was very familiar with owner financing because her parents had bought several properties with owner financing and had sold many properties with owner financing. So she was very familiar with receiving monthly payments, getting a little bit of her payment or the little bit of the sales price each and every month. And she is totally happy to do that. So I said, well, I can't put any more than $35,000 down, and which was 15%. So that gave me a $215,000 note. So basically the sales price $250 and 15% down means I was going to have an 85% loan to value note. Okay, so I'm going to put that in present value there. 3.5%. I mean, I couldn't have got a better bank loan than this, even, and so why go through all of that brain damage, right? She fully amortized it over 30 years. I said I really needed to be affordable because I'm going to put so much money into this property, but I want to keep it long term. And basically future value 0 because it's fully amortized. So my monthly payment, and hopefully I put in oops. There we go. There's the right numbers. My monthly payment was $965. And this is the one where a year later she wanted to sell the note, and I ended up buying it for, I said, go out and shop it. But I said that when we talked, you were never going to sell this note because you wanted the income. But I said, if you're going to sell it now, it's not going to be pretty for you, but go out there and get the best offer that you can. And basically I just matched it. So basically I guess the note balance at the time was about $210. And so she walked away for $105,000 cash. And so, but she was super happy with that. Even I told her, please don't do this. If she did it because she had a major health problem, and she didn't want her kids left with not knowing what to do with this asset. And I said, it's not like I'm going to quit paying your kids. I'm never going to default on this note. You really should not sell the note because it's going to cost. But she didn't care. That was the most important thing to her. And so that worked out great for me. To be able to get in basically for the 105 plus the 250 or the what I put down, 35,000. So what I get, 140 plus a year's worth of payments. So basically I was in call it 150 on this property, which is actually my number that I really, really wanted based on the fact that I would put 250 into it. So, she had it offered for 400,000, and anyway, I ended up getting in it for 400,000 after the fact. So any questions, comments? If not, I am going to just move on to the next one. Now this one, as I told you, is I would bring up one that was a consulting client of mine quite a while back. I've gotten old, so it's this has probably been a good 10 years now. But this was in Southern California. And it was a 5-plex. Now and he he just wanted help putting this deal together and just some feedback and some guidance, even though he found the property. But then he was, I can't remember why he thought he needed my help, but I'll just remember I was involved in helping him put this deal together. He says, it's really, okay, up at the top you see that it's a multi-family fiveplex for, market value at that time was $500,000, about $100,000 a door. But she he'd been working her, older lady, and she just had to have 650. And so I said, well, what do you want to do? What kind of terms do you think you can get? And so we worked with this around, like, what would your payment have to be? Let's just pretend you don't care about price. What would your payment have to be that you could cash flow this thing, or it would at least cover itself? And so we worked that out. So he only had to he paid $150,000 over market, and he's never looked back. He's been so happy with this deal. So let's look at it. 5% down on a multifamily. Now that's great, right? If you went to the bank to get a loan, they're gonna want, 35% down, 25 to 35% down. So with the calculator here, so basically 650, and if it was 5% down, we're gonna do 0.95 because it's a 95% loan. 617.5. There's another nice 3.5% interest rate. Okay, and the payment had to be around that, $2,000, $2,100. So you know what she did? This lady, to get her price. Now, what do you want to bet? She was at Thanksgiving one year and someone told her she missed the top of the market. And she says, no, I'm going to get my price. What do you bet? It's just like, I told so-and-so I was going to get my price. And by golly, I'm going to do it. She was willing to fully amortize this over 50 years. So I'm going to do 50 times 12 months each. We got 600 months. So that's N in term. Fully amortized means there's no balloon at the end. This is future value. So we solved for that payment, and he could live with that. Can you believe that? So I'm just telling you, don't think you have to do everything by what the banks do, like a 30-year fixed. You can just ask for what you want and see if it works for both parties. So the deal on this, the gross rents were about, I hope the numbers work out. I want to say it was about $1,200 a door. Yeah. Okay. So gross rents, and I'm sure he was going to fix them up and, increase the rents over time. But he put, so then 6,000, and basically he's going to decide 40% of that right off the top goes to reserves, right? For taxes, insurance, repairs, so that the property pays for itself. That's the job of a house or a property, is to pay for itself, okay? So you don't want it to come knocking at your door. This goes in a separate account so that the money's always there for, the surprise repairs, or it's time to do the roof, or the big things that need to be done. That's just wise to do. Of course, his debt service was $2,181, and that left him, look at this, $1,400 cash flow on a property that he paid $150,000 too much for, right? So there again, we don't need to assume that other people think the way that we do, okay? So she didn't need the money. She was sick of managing the property, and he just kept after her and after her until they came to an agreement. She didn't care about the down payment money. She liked him, she trusted him. She didn't, the cash flow didn't matter. All that mattered is she got her price and she didn't have to manage the property anymore. So never be scared to ask for things that you want. When he got this, I was literally floored though. I'm like, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. Now let's just see if she changed her mind. Let's just see a 50-year amortization at 3.5% fully amortized. If she died and her heirs and beneficiaries wanted to sell this note, and let's just pretend that maybe 2 years had gone by, minus 24. So now we have 576 payments. And what if the investor only needed an 8% return? That was very modest, right? Over the next 50 years. Well, let's see what the price the note buyer would pay. Wow, 50 cents, right? It's more likely for someone to go out this long, they might need more like 10%. And now they're, that's getting pretty skinny. So you can see that she got the sales price. She got the money she wanted on the sale, but it wasn't present value benefit, right? The value was really in the length of it. Oops. Let me recreate this and just show you over the term what she'd be getting. Over the term, 1.3 million. Okay? 1.3 million, but not if she tries to sell the note and has to discount those future payments, because think of it like I would take all night to scroll down to the end, but in 50 years, do you think $2,000 will buy the same or less than what it buys now? Okay, so statistically speaking though, usually people sell properties before, 30 years even. So statistically speaking, it probably would have paid off. He'd have not refinanced, but if he decided he wanted to sell the property, let's say it had appreciated in value or something happened and he just wanted to get out of it, he might have sold, but his best way to sell it would be to see if he could get the seller to keep carrying the paper for the next buyer, right? Because that's where the juice is, making this property worth a lot more than its supposed market value. Any comments, questions, chats, or anything I need to know about? Well, I'll take a little sip of water here. 1,400 out the gate cash flow. That's even with 40% reserve. So even if you're wrong and you have to spend more than 40% on taxes, insurance, and your maintenance, you got some breathing room there, huh? And so he was going to hold this forever and ever. I'm pretty sure he still has it, although I haven't talked to him about it in a bit.
Hey, Don, one other thing, Don, on this here is a good thing, just like what you did on the very first example. A lot of times things happen in that period of time over 2, 3, 4, 5 years or more, and that buyer of that note might be able to buy that note back at a really good discount if they needed the money. So that's another good thing.
Yeah, that's true. So you're talking about, and I honestly don't remember, it's been that long, but I would presume that we had him put a first right of refusal to buy the note at the same price that any other arm's length note buyer would, quote in writing.
Right.
If we
I
didn't,
think the 1.2 million that you had down was the total return of the note over 50 years.
yeah, it was 1.3 million.
1.3.
Fully amortized. So basically,
Right.
for a property that's market value is 500,000, over time they would get 1.3 million, but that's without accounting for the time value of money and the value of those future payments. So anything that you start, the longer you go out, the less those future payments are worth in terms of today's dollars. But for the person, if the person doesn't have to sell the note, she got 150,000 more for the property. So she has a cushion in there, right? So someone's happy with that. Okay, all right. So there's some inflation, there's some time value of money, but she also got $150,000 more for her property. And Ken, this reminds me of your deal that you were sharing where you pulled 200 grand of equity out of thin air by being willing to carry it, what was it, 6% on that retail office building you sold?
Yeah, it's 6%. Exactly.
Yeah. So you created market conditions. If someone had to pay cash or get a 10% loan, they couldn't have paid your price, right? So what was most important to you was getting your price and getting the cash flow. You're in a secure position. And so there you did. You pulled out equity, 200,000, rabbit out of the hat. So that's phenomenal. And you're under no illusion. You didn't create that note to sell it. You're well capitalized. So you wouldn't be in the market to sell that note. But if you had to, you could, right? Because it's still pretty solid. Or something happened to you and, your wife and kids or something needed to. It's, they can still get a fair amount of money out of it. Okay, now the third example I'm bringing up is this guy 2-3 weeks ago in Arizona. There was a single family rental property for sale. Now, for context, this guy is an investor and a property, he does flips, he does his own buy and holds, and he also is a property manager. So I'm assuming that he got these deals from people that he was doing property management for them. So they knew him, they trusted him, they knew that he knows what he's doing with rental properties. So my guess is, now this is one property worth $500,000 in a very nice subdivision in Phoenix. Guys, he had 8 of these that he was talking to me about. 8 properties almost exactly like this. So it was worth $500,000 and he said, okay, I'll pay your price, but I'm not going to put anything down. 0 down payment. He had to cover closing costs. Okay, so a few $1,000s for all the closing costs. So basically he ended up with a $500,000 note. So $500,000 sales price with 0% down is 100% loan to value at a 5% interest rate, interest only due in 2 years. Okay, so basically I'm going to, they were working on a 30-year modification. So then the seller's like, that's fine that you're paying me every month. Let me show you how obviously you guys probably know how to do interest only, but here's how I do it. It's one way. So I just take the present value, put a minus on it, stick it in future value, and solve for payment. And of course, it doesn't matter. So basically, this is the note when it was first originated, and she was going, I'm willing to extend it out 360 months for you. Same payment, so basically no money down, $2,083 a month, and that big fat principal payment that was due at the end. Okay, so what do you guys think about this? He says, look, the seller's willing to go out 30 years, but she wants to shake some money loose out of this property, and I wouldn't have bought this property for $500,000 because the rents are only $2,400 on this. So it would only cash flow as long as there weren't many unexpected expenses, right? And we know that's not realistic. So basically he wanted to cash flow it, right? Without putting any money out of his own pocket. So he says, can you find a way to get some money to this seller so that she'll extend the terms out? And I said, well, what would you guys do? Let me put it out to you guys. What do you think about this? Can you believe this? Would you have the audacity to ask for 0% down? It just reminded,
What's the property worth, Don?
it's about that. Yeah, it's probably, in that 480 to 500 easy. Nice area, I think around a golf course or something. These were all good properties. And so it just reminded me that, people are asking for what they want. And the seller, in this case, if you're the buyer, the seller can say no, but why not ask for what you want? Now, if I was advising the seller, we'd have to have a talk to really see what their expectations were, because this is technically kind of risky, because the guy doesn't. What happens if something gets hard, market crashes, rents go down? Does this guy have an incentive? What's he gonna lose if he walks away? So what? He came out of pocket, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000 maybe. Well, maybe not even that, depending on if they ran it full through title company, which I think they did. But basically, he has closing costs to lose. The property now he's not trying to flip these. He's in the business of, he wants to keep them forever. Everything he's getting, he wants to keep forever. And he knows that over time he's going to have to put more money in them. But anyway, but still, would you, so I actually put together some numbers for buying a front end partial, even though I normally wouldn't touch something like this.
Don, what's he gonna do with it after 2 years if it's a 2-year note?
I think he's probably going to give it back to her. That's what I think. All right, that's why he that's why he wanted to extend it in exchange for finding a way to get her cash, but he didn't want to put up the cash. Okay, so basically it's still no skin in the game from him, but he was going to try to find a way. And I did make an offer to him. I said, here's an idea of something I'd be willing to do. It was less than they thought, because why am I concerned, right? I'm concerned, even if it's a nice property, he still has, I don't want a headache. I've had lots of long distance headaches, and so I'm not very fond of them anymore. I used to think it was really exciting to try lots of interesting things, but so I don't want a headache, because I'm long distance, he's there, he knows his market, he's sophisticated enough, and if he wants to play the game. So basically, I offered something like, okay, the most I can bring to the table is like $100,000, something like that, as a front end partial, and say, so basically what would that be? Let me see, just for kicks and giggles, what I did. $100,000, and if I said, to create a monthly spread, that's some arbitrage. It gives me some room for some arbitrage. And of course, I'm not going to have this $500,000 balloon. So basically, I've got to buy, I probably said 6 years worth of payments, just round up to the next year, right? And then, so I probably said something like that, because then I would be fully amortized out by the end of the 6 years. Did I say 7? I meant 6. I always probably say the wrong thing. But anyway, so that would be a reasonable risk to me. But I know that he was going, well, why can't you bring 50 cents on the dollar? I'm like, because do you know how fast I bring $2.50 to the table? Things get weird. Property values soften, rents go down, market so then I get no payments, so the payments stack up, then I got legal fees, then I got forced place insurance, and then I got to keep up the taxes. Pretty soon, by the time I get to the foreclosure sale, I'm in it. No, in a heartbeat, I could be up to $300,000 what's owed to me, and if the market has softened, I might be lucky to get my money back out of it, right? I might be lucky. So I'd rather be in it at land value, basically. And even this, after I made the quote, actually changed my mind because just some dynamics that I could see that he didn't follow through with things that he said. And so I'm going, by the time it had sat a few days, I go, you know what, even if he comes back and accepts this, I think I'm going to walk away because I don't like the feeling because he says one, he doesn't follow through on his word, which makes me nervous. I don't like that. Okay. That's not good for right in the beginning. But in terms of what would the buyer, if they didn't know, and I said, what about this lady? I think he bought 3 from this lady about this same thing. She had 3 properties right in this. I said, why did they do this? And what do they need out of it? He says, they don't need anything. They come from oil money, and it's just a matter of principle. They want some money out of it, but they really don't need the money. Okay, well, they said yes. And apparently they're wealthy and should be lawyered up, no problem, wealth advisors and things like that. And this is what they decided to do. So just saying, and over the years, I have bought notes at a very big discount. I have bought notes that were 0% down, or maybe a small percent down, 5 or 10%, and 0% interest. Okay, so people just ask for what you want. I know there was a lady I used to that used to hang around in the crowd back in the day when I was running around, and she was back east somewhere. Property values are probably somewhere between where she was in the 40 to 100,000, target area, and she would buy lots of these houses, but they would. The value of the property wasn't high, but they cash flowed like crazy, right? So she might buy something for 35 or 40,000 and get 1,200 rent out of it or something like that. Okay, but so she would always go, well, I'll give you your price, but I got to pay you. Can you give me some time to get you that payment? And they said sure. And then they would go, well, at what interest rate? And she would just matter-of-factly say, oh, I don't pay interest. I don't pay interest. So basically, that's what she would do. And so any questions, comments? Does anyone else have just something that they want to share? Or talk about?
Hey, Don. Let's unpack the question from Edward here. Connor, he messaged in. He says, do you think buying real estate or lending using real estate as collateral is a good idea before a recession?
I still think I'm still doing business, but I'll tell you what, I'm a lot more conservative. A lot more conservative than I used to be. But yes, if I am I buying something that I know will cash flow and I have room, like I showed you on that one with that 5-plex, heck yeah, and most likely if the seller's carrying the paper and things really go sideways, unlike the bank, a normal person with a heartbeat is going to work something out with you unless they just really want the property back, right? So I would, yes, as long as I get great terms, I'm going for it. If I'm originating money, lending money, just my investment to value's or loan to value's got to be a lot lower than it used to be, because I'm already baking in my mind like probably 25% softening, and lots of people disagree with that, but that's okay. I've had enough fun of guessing high on things, and I don't need that much fun anymore. Because my job to keep my investors' money safe, right? So I may not do as much volume because I'm not the highest. I won't pay the most for a property or for a note. But there's always creative ways to say what what do both sides of the transaction really need? What's most important to them? And it's going to be different than what's most important to you. So if this, they're again just coming out, anyone who's brand new to this conversation, I hope it's just really opened your mind to the enormous possibilities of owner financing, seller financing, just mom and pop deals together. Don't go to the bank. Don't even need to do all cash, right? Now, if they don't have 100% equity and they have a big loan, you can take over those payments. That's called wrapping, or it's basically subject to, SUBJECT, subject to. You can take over that, but you've got to be very, very careful and understand the legal ways to do it and the risks that are involved for both sides of the transaction. What I see a lot of is wholesalers getting real happy, getting tons of properties, and then trying to make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a wholesale fee. They got someone to just say, yeah, go ahead, take over my payments. It's fine. I just, blah, blah, blah. They think that person that they hopefully developed a relationship is the one that's going to make sure their loan gets paid. But that guy doesn't plan to touch it. He's going to make his big fat fee and move on. And the family coming in probably hasn't been underwritten or qualified. And they probably have no idea that that loan has a very high chance of being accelerated, and they may lose if they come in with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, and then 2 years there's the note gets called. Guess what? And the market's down. They could lose that money. That family could be out of it. There's going to be a lot of trouble if and regulations are going to come down our throats if people don't clean up their act and do this in a more integrity way. I'm sure that's not proper grammar. But anyway, so there's all sorts of things that make sense as long as you have the right terms. And if you're going to take on a property that has existing financing, there's a lot more moving pieces that you need to be careful about. But it can be a super powerful way to do it, right? What if one family needs out, lost a job, have to move out of town to take care of parents, and and they don't even have enough equity to pay a real estate agent to list their property. But there's another family who's capable, who either, maybe they can't get a bank loan because they're self-employed, but they have great income. And if that deal is done correctly and legally, it can be a real blessing for both sides. And then the bank's lucky too, because they don't end up with a short sale, right? So I don't know, they would see it that way, but they have a performing loan on their books. So anyhow, this is always fun. Ed, what do you think, Ed? Can you come on and what are you seeing? What's your opinion on what we should be doing business-wise?
Well, I think you make a really good point, which is it depends on how good your deal is and how well it cash flows and how much cushion you have in the deal, and that you're assuming a 25% haircut to begin with. So if the deal works, then that's fine. But I'm probably more cautious right now than I need to be. But I appreciate your feedback on it.
Yeah, Ed, now are you still, if I'm remembering correctly, Ed, you've done gangbusters just being a private lender, making 14% return on your money secured by investment properties over there in your neck of the woods, right?
Right. I had a friend's rate of 10%. People
that's the friends and family discount.
And then after someone did a number of loans with me, I would charge 12. So it was 20 to 14%, secured by real estate. My loan to values were really good because of certain not so great areas in Baltimore. But if the landlords were willing to deal with that population, I felt that I was very secure. So that's what I was doing with COVID when they shut down the evictions. All of my borrowers had trouble, some seriously. So I'm basically just I've only got a few straggling deals, and I'm here and there and other places, thinking about what I want to do next. But yeah, I had a really nice niche market. I was really happy with it until the government took away the security of the real estate and the court support and so forth.
Yeah, that was really a head tipper when that being one of the reasons where basically if my head could spin around like Sybil 10 times, it did during that time. Just metaphorically, I just could not believe what was going on. It's like, hey, this is not America. Hello, what happened to personal property rights? And just realizing there's a lot bigger agenda. Whether they'll get away with it, I don't know. How things will go, I don't know. And that's part of the reason, that I diversify a lot too. I have a lot more paper than I have property, more notes secured by property than property. But then I also have gold and silver, in various places, but not like ETFs, not paper gold, not paper silver. The self-directed IRA. So I've got a chunk I transferred over into that. You guys have heard me talk about crypto too. And just as an aside, there's a lot of banks that are starting to buy Bitcoin now too. So, and we'll see what happens with the regulation, but who knows? It's just a diversification. And also, before we quit this meeting, I just want to remind anyone, especially if you're new, one of the most important investments that I really want to hammer home is preparedness, because it doesn't matter what your net worth is if you can't feed your family. If you can't go to the store and you can't order from Amazon for a month, or God forbid 2 months or 3 months, what are you going to do? Okay, so you need to have, that's one of the best investments you can have. And plus, if you buy now, it might be worth double the food. You're buying your future food at half price. Just think of it that way. But I actually think we're pretty lucky given the last solar activity we had, the 10th, 11th, 12th in there. It's actually quite remarkable that there were no problems. Okay, it's just sort of a shot across the bow, I think, because that could have been a situation that if those sunspots and those flares had been pointed at the right place at the right time, that you could be out of power. And even in a windstorm, I've been out of power in the middle of the city in a subdivision for 6 days. Okay, so anyway, just my little soapbox there, because I really want you to be prepared. And if you can, grow your own food. Think about what you're going to do if. It's just worth it, right? Better to be prepared than and not need it than to really need it and be going out there fighting with everybody else for the last can of beans or whatever it is on the shelf in the store. Yeah, anyway, so I think we can wrap up. Thank you for everyone coming and joining here tonight. I always appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. And in the meantime, go out there and create financial solutions, just one mom and pop to another. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Bye-bye.